I bet that if I told you that I could do more with less people, you'd think I was crazy, wouldn't you? I can use some basic planning and scheduling strategies to support this and to show you exactly how that can be and get back time. Within this little course, I'm going to show you some targeted goals around the planning and scheduling that you can do from week to week that will end up supporting, helping, and controlling your backlog with some of the methods that we're going to talk about to give your end users a little bit more comfortability that you are, in fact, performing to their needs. But in essence, what I want to really do is identify the ways to gain the most valuable, precious commodity that we have in maintenance, reliability, and project work, which is time. A good way to look at planning and scheduling is that you are a service provider. In order for you to provide that service, you have to understand what the scope is, whether it be asset performance, whether it be project goals and scope identification for renovation and or new buildings. Within your asset maintenance and reliability structure, you have to identify what types of equipment that you have, the plans for you to maintain that equipment so that it ends up working for your client. And your client is getting the services that you're providing to them with some expectations of how you're going to deliver it. So this cycle is actually going to work in both ways because you're going to have a feedback loop between each of you to communicate about so that you can make these SLAs better in the long run. Making them better by planning ahead, which will reduce the delays during the jobs. You'll identify the materials that you'll need, the person power that you need, equipment that you might need. If there are any safety related issues that you might need to take care of, like outages, lockout tagouts, safety task analysis perhaps. And then you'll use the scheduling portion of it to reduce the delays between the jobs so that you can be more efficient in identifying where the work's going to be taking place and keeping things grouped together in those areas so that you have less mobilization and demobilization problems. This in turn will give your end users a little bit more of an idea of how you're going to do it and that you will meet the needs that they have for what their expectations are. A project, and in this case, a maintenance life cycle, is really revolving around your asset performance and your asset life cycle. In order to do that, you have to identify exactly what it is that you have to do. So your PMs will be identified with what needs to be done with that particular piece of equipment, or your scope will be identified if you need to do a renovation project. You'll look at the things that you have to align with, either with the building and or with the equipment itself by manufacturer's recommendations. And then you'll end up planning this out so that you can make proper job plans, scope identifications, and get, as I was stating before, the materials that are necessary, the person power necessary, equipment, etc. These two things will work together to give your end users some relief in that you are looking ahead to what actually needs to be done. And then your schedule that you develop based on this will further that even more so that they know when you're going to be there to complete this. It's also going to give you some time back because you'll be more efficient in how you're putting this together by grouping the work in areas within your plant or areas within your campus that are closer in distance to each other so that you don't have to travel very far. The other part to this too is that you'll be able to align your schedule with planned shutdowns that need to happen so that you can be more effective in getting the asset control under wraps during those times and have less downtime. More uptime means happier end users. It also means that your mechanics and your technicians will be executing that work more efficiently and more effectively to give you that end result that we're talking about. This piece is really important because someone has to do the work, but the technicians are the ones that actually find the hurdles that are coming about because we might have missed something on the plan, or the end user wants something a little different than what you originally thought with the plan, or things change. And maybe a piece of equipment isn't running as efficiently as the manufacturer's statements were, and we have to change some things. So what they'll do is they'll record this within the work order and or the project scope definition so that they can have some sort of a feedback loop to the planner or the manager and supervisor, and you can work through continuously improving these going forward. It'll also help you with your asset management profile to optimize your PMs or your predictive maintenance to get it to a better standing to help with the KPIs to give your end users that return on their SLAs. In order to do this, we're going to have to analyze that data. You're going to have to look at the means and methods that you've been producing or developing for the plans, identify if there's any weaknesses in that, and then develop a new plan or update the plan as necessary. And then we'll continue this cycle throughout, all the way again, so that we can grow as a company or as an organization and further the end user's results that they were asking for and stick to them even further. But you'll end up gaining time because you're constantly evolving your program. So I'm going to get back to the thing I said at the beginning. I bet if I told you that I could do more with less people, you'd think I was crazy, wouldn't you? Increasing your workforce without hiring? Are you crazy? And what this is realizing some planning and scheduling strategies around how to get that time back. Now, I'm going to go through a little example and kind of explain this a little bit so that you get an idea of exactly how I can do more with less. So let's take 3 technicians without any planning whatsoever and look at it from the perspective of those mechanics. They're running around and they're doing the work. They're identifying the plan. They're identifying when they're going to do it. They're scheduling themselves. They're going from place to place. They're mobilizing and demobilizing. They're ordering material. All the while trying to make it so that the end user is happy with what's going on. So they're interacting with them as well. And to be completely honest, this is inefficient because they're the ones that should be doing the work, the actual wrench time. We want them to interact with the end user and the customer, but they're the ones that are the subject matter experts to get those things done. As they're doing this work, on average, they're about 35% efficient in their day-to-day things and how they do them. So if I take those 3 technicians and multiply that by the 35% productivity level, I get 105% total productivity between all 3 of them. Now, you can think to yourself, 105%, that's better than 100. They're doing good. Well, in essence, that is only really an extra 5% of improvement on productivity versus what you could have if I took one of those away and I made that a planner. Now, I know what you're going to say. You just took one of the people away that does the work. How am I going to get more done? Well, this person's sole objective is to make sure that the plans are in place, that they talk to the technician and the end users so that we can support the service level agreements that we're looking for. They get with the scheduler and or in most cases, they are the scheduler and planner, but they develop things in ways that they can schedule these folks in a better, more routine cycle so that they can get things done within your buildings or with your assets. So adding this one person really doesn't do any wrench time, yes. However, that one person at 0% wrench time, plus the two that are completing the work, now in a more planned approach, and so that you can get to that sweet spot of the extra 20% that I'm showing here, you need to schedule them at 100% of their available hours. That gives you two mechanics at 55% now productivity level, which ends up being 110%. So I've just increased my productivity level by adding a planner and not having an extra person to do the work. Now there's some key factors in this. You have to schedule your folks at 100% because that's going to give you a talking point, which I'll show you later on with break-in work, that will help with the SLAs and give you something to go and have feedback with the end users. Identifying this is really key. So you need to have a good ratio within the planner to technician ratios. 1 in 20 to 30 is about the normal working relationship between planner and technicians. We've found that ours works around 26. You can effectively put out work for 26 technicians with just one planner. Now, if I take the 55% productivity level that I'm currently getting with one planner and two technicians, and I divide that by the original 35% that we were getting with three technicians doing all the work themselves, that gives you a factor of 1.57. In essence, that's a 57% improvement over planning versus not planning. Take that one step further. If I have 30 technicians and I multiply that by that 1.57 factor, that gives me 47 technicians worth of work with only 30 folks. Still think I'm crazy? Your work is developed, especially in the maintenance and reliability world, on a week-to-week basis. So you want to schedule that accordingly. This blue line represents the scheduled work that goes from week to week. T+1 is the previous work week, T-0 is this work week, and T-1 is next work week. So we're going to work with these three just so that I can give you an idea of how this really comes about and how it works. And we'll show you how to diminish your backlog by using some of the principles that I was talking about earlier with the planning and then having the talking points to the break-in work. Normally, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the previous work week and find out what's going on, why we didn't get something done, what we got achieved, especially, so that we can have some good conversations about what we did well and if we need to do anything. However, most times you're going to have incomplete work that is necessary to reschedule in a forecasted work week. So it's important to have scheduling meetings that you can do this with. Sit down with your folks, identify those hurdles that you did have, why the break-in work occurred, which I'll show you in a second. But it'll also give you the ways and means to put that work out and possibly get it done through overtime perhaps, so that you don't have incompletes during that week, or strategies wrapped around better mitigating those break-ins. Now let's look at this work week. I've already scheduled my folks completely 100%. I'm looking at ways that I can get them in and out of places. However, it's going to happen. Reactive work is never ever going to go away. And I want to preface this by saying it's okay. Having this type of work in your reliability and maintenance structure is a key component. You're never going to get away from having reactive work, and it's necessary that you understand that it's okay to have this. This is going to be the talking points to what I'm going to get to in a second to support your service level agreements with your end users, but to make the cases of why you schedule your work and why someone, say, bringing work into this current work week and requesting it, or having some unscheduled work from last week have to come in and get done, or even a scheduled PM or something that was forecasted already come into this work week and not get rescheduled. All that taking place means that something that I've already scheduled is not going to get done. Now, you could also have some stuff that's called breakout work, where I had something scheduled this week, but I broke it out of the schedule, possibly because of the break-ins, and I put it into a forecasted work week, but I did not reschedule it. We want to get away from this practice so that we identify things and get rid of the backlog or bring it down to a more manageable range and support the service level agreements with the end users. Now, remember what I said. Break-in work comes in, you already have something scheduled, so you're going to have those incompletes. But we have to try and mitigate this. So, this is what it is to have a talking point. The break-in work that's coming into your schedule and pushing those work orders out or pushing the schedule of your project off a little bit, you need to look at the ratio between the incompletes and that break-in work and make sure that they are very close together. If those percentages are off on one side or the other, say you have more break-in work than you do incomplete work, that means that you have a lot of availability in your day, and or someone is not inputting time and or planning correctly. So that's a talking point there for your scheduling meetings to align with the holistic strategy of scheduling ahead. On the opposite side of that, if you have a lot of incomplete work and not a lot of break-in work, that means that we're going to probably have a very different conversation with, say, the technicians of making sure that they are completing their work. Because you had it scheduled and you should have gotten it done, why didn't we complete it? So again, these two ratios need to be very close together. Now I have a talking point to go back to our end users and support our SLAs, or to support the means and methods of our strategies behind making sure that our scheduled work is done and that we don't have a lot of reactive work. The more I have to reschedule something and get it done in a forecasted work week, the increase in my backlog happens. So we want to try and mitigate that and control it. Now again, like I said, this is going to happen week to week to week. But with the methods and the strategies that I'm talking about here, you can lessen the effect of this break-in work or the breakout work and support the methods to get the scheduled work more complete and keep your backlog at a manageable size. You're never going to get rid of all of your reactive work, and that's okay. Buildings are old. Methods are not correct. You may have to adjust things. That's why that maintenance life cycle, a cyclical process, is a very important cog in your strategies, so that you can manage those things that come up and try to identify what the defect is to get rid of it. Now, think of a defect elimination strategy not only within your asset management realm, okay, but in your process management realm as well. There are things that you can improve upon to eliminate that defect. Again, too, with your asset management, that's the same thing. You're going to have to do failure analysis on that. So this can work on both processes, but you have to analyze that data. So don't forget to create reporting structures that support your methods and your strategies to get you that important time back. You have to look at what you're putting out, how many hours you're putting out, how many hours you're actually scheduled and getting complete. Then you need to look at how the assets are reacting to uptime and making sure that you're supporting the service level agreements with the end users of your plant and or your facilities, and make sure that the assets are staying working all the time. But you're going to see time savings with all of this because you're looking at it from a strategic, planned approach. Effectively, We've looked at some targeted goals around planning and scheduling from week to week and how that's going to control some of the backlog that you have by using the methods and garner some support from your end users, have those talking points like I was talking about. But we really identified that if we use a planned and scheduled approach, we can gain back that precious time and support other things that we need to do, like maybe condition monitoring or a predictive measure, and get to more strategic measures in doing our maintenance and reliability or project work. Along the way, you're going to have to find ways to get things together and get your end users to understand and support you, but you're also going to have to support them. So the best way to do this is to plan your work and work your plan. And then you can actually do more with less.